It really depends depending on how many entries you're going for and how different they are when it comes to marathoning games. I'll explain further. Marathoning games, the idea that you play an entire franchise or series of games back to back to back. Usually done for people who want to get into a franchise before a new entry comes out and everything. But it's one of those things where people commonly do it for like TV shows and movies that are more passive, or people who marathon books in preparation for the next one. But since games require more effort, require interactability with the player and everything, and their runtime can vary, especially when it's a certain franchise, it does make the effort of marathoning it more of a task than other mediums and everything, you know? At the time I was recording, I technically somehow finished marathoning God of War games. By the time I got to God of War 3, I will admit, because of the fact that they kept things consistent on Kratos played, I was starting to get sick of playing as Kratos with the blades, everything, because I was doing the same combos, everything, throughout the games. But it's also because I'm marathoning these games when normally a person would have played them when they came out, rather than doing them back to back to back. It's not as if developers intended for the idea for someone like me to play them back to back to back like this, over and over and over with each new game and everything. So the repetition starts to sink in when, because of the fact that I would have had years apart to play them and not be constantly doing the same action as Kratos, even if there are differences in each game when it comes to stuff like the magic abilities, the tools Kratos gets, etc., stuff like that. Meanwhile, when it came to the games I played by Remedy, I didn't get this feeling of repetition because despite them all being a third-person shooter of some sort, they all did the third-person shooter aspect very differently from each other, with, at the lowest, probably being Alan Wake 2 because of how basic its gameplay completely felt. But it's one of those things where, because it was a marathon of games by a developer and not an entire franchise, it meant that things could be more different and I wouldn't get necessarily burnt out playing the exact same kind of gameplay over and over and over. Even though, like I said, God of War has differences in each of the games that make them each stand out, but you just start feeling the burnout. You keep playing a game that starts feeling too similar over and over and over. One of the worst ideas I had back in the day was when I actually marathoned the classic Mega Man titles, Death Legacy Collection 1, where that collection had Mega Man 1 through 6 for the NES, and those games play so similar to each other that I was completely sick of playing classic Mega Man. By the time I got to Mega Man 4, if I got to Mega Man 6, I just wanted the pain to stop. That's more of a case of Mega Man being designed to keep a simple formula throughout the games, so of course not much gonna shake up after it, and not even people at the time when those games came out did get sick of Mega Man. By the time Mega Man 6, it still made it worse for me trying to do that back to back to back, because, well, like I said, by design, he's meant to be simple, to keep this one-time simple playstyle, so me trying to expect something would change was a stupid idea. That's another thing. When games get released as collections, do the developers' collection intend for you to play them back to back to back? No, they expect you to play the entries you like and everything. Even the developers of the games who made the OG versions don't even play all of them back to back to back. They just play the ones they want to play, or get to a certain segment of the entries they want to play and call it a day. I believe one of the producers in my Bound Network got to Bound Network 1 in the Legacy Collection, basically quit after Flame Man, like one of the earlier net navies, and call it a day, with people saying justified of the boss fight being overly difficult, because even a person who made the boss fight basically found it overly difficult. But it's one of those things where, yeah, with a collection, they don't exactly expect you to marathon all of them back to back to back. They expect you to just pretty much play the ones you want, and put all of them back to back. Go ahead. You also have some franchises that do change things up way more than other game franchises. Like I mentioned, Mega Man, classic Mega Man, not change things much, but if you were to play something like Bound Network or Mega Man X, you'll see a drastic change in how the things develop and everything, especially since when it comes to X, those are games across several consoles, go from Super Nintendo to PlayStation 2 and everything. So you can start seeing the evolution of the series through it, but also the changes in the design philosophy for each title and how it affects the next one. So it doesn't really feel like you're playing the same thing over and over each time. Quantum aspects of a battle network where you can start seeing the improvements and how they build upon the previous game's framework constantly to add more and more into the game. Everything going from basic net navi battling to all the multiple versions of Battle Network 3 to all the double soul mechanic in Battle Network 4 to liberation missions in Battle Network 5 and 6. You see how things keep growing and growing and growing if you were to play all of them back to back to back. Now, my Battle Network isn't on the longer side. There are also entire RPG franchises that can just bundle a whole bunch of games back to back to back, like let's say Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster bundling Final Fantasies 1 through 6. Well, once again, you can pick and choose which entry you want. Hell, you can even buy them individually, so you can literally pick and choose which entry you want. That's still like 6 games that average about 30 hours a piece for each game being compiled back to back to back. You would have played them back to back to back. But for me, I have an issue going to the Pixel remasters like that because of how different each game felt. So I really felt like I was being burnt out compared to playing the God of War series. So it's one aspect where they were different enough to the point where it didn't feel like I was starting to feel like I was doing the exact same thing over and over and over, which does feel weird because they're way longer games. And I've seen people generally have burnout with a long franchise or long games, but for me, it was God of War, which were a shorter series of games that made me start going, okay, I'm starting to get tired of doing the same combo over and over, okay, I need to watch something else. And he also still like the Kingdom Hearts franchise, or Yakuza, which also nowadays sells massive bundles that can include most of, if not all of their titles. When it comes to Yakuza, sure, you can skip a few games and a recap or whatever, but Kingdom Hearts is way more story focused, so there's more emphasis on trying to get at least the gist of the game before going to the next one. Or you can do a recap Kingdom Hearts 3 has. People keep forgetting about that fact, we got a recap. But it's one of those things where now it's the idea that, yeah, they definitely expect you to be going through all these titles, once again, not back to back, and there are people who do buy collectional games, but don't play them back to back like that. Even if when you do buy collection, people do kind of, I assume you will, like, remember buy collection, people are like, oh, you got this many games to play through, kind of thing, but it generally means that's the idea that you're gonna do them, marathoning them back to back to back, right, and just, you'll play one game, they'll play another one later, and stuff like that. Now, the main reason why someone would go through multiple games back to back is because they're invested in it. They're invested in what a developer has to offer, or they're invested in the game series itself. It could be something that could be multiple different games, like Final Fantasy, different settings, or like Mass Effect, where it's just one continuing story thread with your choices. So, of course, one game will lead directly to the next one, so you're like, what happens next? I just gotta know what happens now. Kind of haunter aspect when it comes to marathoning, but the downside is you get burnt the F out, and you may start seeing the following games as lesser, not because they did anything wrong, but because they're just sick of playing the games in question. Like I mentioned how by the time I got to play God of War 3, I was starting to get sick of playing the freaking God of War games, but I wasn't thinking like, oh, God of War 3 is lesser. And I was thinking, okay, maybe I should wait a good bit before playing Ghost of Sparta, and then after playing Ascension, I can get the Torque emulation, and then also I do have to wait for God of War 2018 to go on sale anyway, so I might as well wait. But it's one whole entire thing where it's like, okay, maybe I won't play the next game right now. And some people may think, well, burnout's temporary, so probably get back to picking it up. Not necessarily, because you can be so burnt out on a franchise, you may not even pick it back up again for literal years. I've seen people go through because they played so many entries back to back to back, and they're so sick of playing the games that they wait literal years before even trying to go back to them or anything, if they even do ever go back to that franchise. Everything. A benefit of marathoning the games is the fact that it means that all the aspects of the game, the previous title, are now more fresher in your mind, so when you go to the next entry, you are more fully aware not only what's going on story-wise, but can also see some of the more details or gameplay changes when it comes to it, as opposed to spacing it out maybe months or years later, where you may forget some details, or even, that's why some games, even if they are part of the same series and everything, will have the recaps, if it hasn't been that long, just to give you a reminder, or how This never happened to me, but one of the more classic things people mention while playing an RPG, and how they took a break from a single RPG. They took a break from one RPG for a bit, they just forget the entire game. They just forget the entirety of the entire game, and it's a feel like they have to restart all over again, because they decided to stop playing a game for like maybe a month, which is like, bro, I dropped Final Fantasy 9 for an entire year and got back to it. It was perfectly fine. But that's just me being crazy. But it's one of those things where, for some people, they may forget a lot by the time they even pick up the next entry by that point, whether it be development cycle-wise or because they just had to take a break. Now they don't remember jack all, and they may end up playing the first game again because of it, or they may end up forgetting some of the details of the previous game when they go into the sequel. Granted, marathoning something could also make you not notice details, like the whole entire binge idea of when it comes to like streaming shows, everything of drop all the season when it's done, drop all of it done, watch them all back to back, don't take any time to digest what you just saw, immediately go to the next thing kind of problem, which can also exist right about video games where some people may end up missing details because rather than thinking about what they just went through, they just go to the next thing immediately and don't let things actually digest in their mind in order to really firmly think about what they just experienced. Which is the same big problem when it comes to like TV shows nowadays, and so many things of drop the entire show all at once. What's that thing about the episode you just watched? No, drop the entire show all at once. No thinking, binge watch the entire thing. Go 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 go. Found this list of quote unquote top 10 most binge-worthy video game franchises by Watch Mojo, and I am baffled that number one is the Uncharted franchise because they play similarly, so that means they feel like it'll be fine to play through, could just enjoy the story. You know, just mention marathoning games that play too similar, mainly to burn out faster because you're not doing much different, or the fact that despite the angle of, oh, narrative focus, Mass Effect series was at number 10. It's like, you think that would be higher because choice-based game. But I don't do it to random tangent about Watch Mojo, but I know it should be judging your Watch Mojo list so heavily because it's Watch Mojo, but at the same time, logicking. But it's also a main reason why people do marathon some games for the narrative aspects, not the gameplay aspects. So a franchise having gameplay be similar across the board is a net positive for those people because what they care about is the story and everything. Like for me, I may be focused on the fact of the similarity between the God of War games and the Greek era so far maybe started making me lose my mind a bit, but for some people, that's a positive. Can be not to learn anything new, or just change up the formula and everything with how they play. It means they basically get to couch potato their way in a sense, and the video game equivalent of basically couch potato their way. You know, when they don't have to think that hard, they can just go through the game and then get through what they typically want, which is the more narrative aspects to prepare for the big games they care about. I highlight how some people marathon a franchise because they want to prepare for a new entry they're interested in, but then there's people who are the exact opposite. Well, they'll refuse the idea of binging through a series or playing older games because all they care about is the new entry. I got the Kingdom Hearts 3. People are like, I should have to play any other Kingdom Hearts game or to play 3. And if I'm lost in the story, then that's the game's fault and not mine. And it's like, no, that's entirely your choice, everything, especially when you get a recap system. But it's one of those things where some people will refuse the idea of going through an entire collection of games, even if the collection was released. Granted, I think the collection on Xbox wasn't out yet, so I think the Xbox fans had a right to complain. PlayStation fans, hell nah, you don't have all the time in the world, everything. Or when I mentioned Mass Effect 3, where one of the people I knew in high school who just want to start Mass Effect 3 and just wanted me to validate their decision and didn't care that I said they could go to Mass Effect 1 and 2, which I actually marathon Mass Effect 1 and 2 back in the day when I played those games. I actually played them back to back. Also led to me completing apathetic Mass Effect 2, and like so many squad members died. But that's not the point. When they just want to be validated and play the new entry, they didn't want an idea of going through the previous ones, even if it would take them super long, but that's what they cared about. They just cared about new hotness. For giggles, I had to Google how long would it take to watch all the anime Yu Yu Hakusho, and people estimate it take about 42 hours. That is a long amount of time and everything, but games are also longer than that, to a point where you can play something like Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster and surpass that time limit in like 2 games. Hell, you could also just play something like Persona 3 and surpass that time limit double fold. Just played 1 game, whole entire thing. Well, yeah, that's the main problem. They take so much time. They take so much time to go through, is why people don't necessarily want to binge things unless it's something like Uncharted, which is shorter series, more story focus, and will take less time to try and binge through. We're going to say about the topic of marathoning games. There's the upside and downside, especially you get super invested in a franchise where you want to keep going. Or you're like me, you're just curious about a franchise, then you want to keep going because the games are already available, so why the hell not? But there can be many things in the way of you binging a series. Hell, some content creators, like streamers, make it an entire event to binge through as many entries of a franchise as they possibly can in a certain amount of time span, because they're curious and because their audience wants support and everything. So it's one of those things where sometimes there's a whole entire challenge idea of trying to expose themselves to a new franchise, but they need the support or to do it. So go out there, play a franchise back-to-back or not, buy collection games and play them back-to-back or not. It's really your choice what you want to do with the whole entire idea, even if you could just get super invested. Although I will say, many people here are one of those people super invested in, like, let's say something like the Mass Effect universe, which requires so much effort in order to keep track of, and so many projects, everything. I don't want to hear that person complain about long video game franchises or marathon things when it comes to how much work that people have to put in just to watch those films. Alrighty then, that's all I gotta say. Good day.
Marathoning video games can be a mixed bag. Depending if you're really into said game, you wouldn't even notice the passage of time. But if you're not into said game and you kind of feel like a little burnt out after playing a couple of games, then you'll be like, I don't really want to continue anymore. So, personally speaking, I don't believe I've ever gone like on a full religious marathon of a specific game. I have played numerous games in a series, but I don't think I've done that consecutively. I think I've done it through the passage of time. The one memory I could recall, it's been a while, is probably when I started marathoning Final Fantasy. I remember I got all of the FF games during one holiday sale on Steam, and I decided to give them a try because up until that point, my only exposure to Final Fantasy is 7 and its varieties. So, like Crisis Core, and when my friend did a playthrough of OG7, and then the playthrough of the 2 remakes, quote-unquote, of 7. Eventually, I started to like FF in its entirety, and I was like, I should give the other games a try. So I remember I did play 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I started 6, but then I stopped because I think I was feeling burnt out. Because it wasn't like I did 1 through 5 like through months. I did that within like maybe weeks. So it wasn't like I took a while. I kind of did them back to back to back. And while I did enjoy my time, specifically FF1, but like I guess I got burnt out. And it's been quite a while since I've been back to FF. I still have like the others to go through, and I know my friend really wants me to get back to it. It's just like I haven't really felt the drive or the go back to FF at the moment, you know, and I have like a trillion other fucking things to do, which I don't, and that's just how the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. You know, I'd rather be in the mood to try my hand at something than force myself to try it and then end up hating it because I don't want to play it, you know? Have I marathoned anything else? I don't specifically recall if I have tried to marathon anything else. I don't know if this would count as marathoning, but probably like in my younger days, the Pokemon games, because I always did play like the Pokemon games when they were out and about, like Fire Red, Leaf Green, Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, Hard Gold, Soul Silver, Black and White. And then in Black and White 2, that's when I kind of started, like, I guess getting burnt out and phasing out of Pokemon. I also did get Y, but I did the first gym leader and then I stopped. I guess I was burnt out of Pokemon 2. I guess you could say I marathon Pokemon, even though, like, there were gaps in between them, because you know, when they released in the appropriate time frame, that's when I played it. but I guess technically you can say I've also marathon Pokemon at one point. But yeah, I understand the sentiment of like marathoning a game religiously. You will get burnt out because it's like, you know, not to say that the game is good, is like bad or anything, but like, I don't know. To me personally, speaking on me as a personal individual, I feel like witnessing the same shit in such a short time span, it just like gets boring. It gets tremendously fucking boring. You know, like, unless you're really into it. If you're really, really into it, again, you wouldn't even notice the passage of time. You'd blink and you already went through like 5 different sagas of whatever you're playing. Like, you know, one I can point to would be the Metroid series for me. I deeply love Metroid. And granted, I have not marathoned Metroid because, again, there's been like gaps of years where Metroid games have came out. But I've never gotten bored of it. Like, I've played nearly every Metroid game and I haven't gotten bored of it. But yeah, so I like to believe that marathoning games can be a mixed bag depending on the individual. For me, it is between either getting burnt out or just I'm not that into it. It depends. It depends. One last one I could think of would be the Mass Effect series. I got into that late, and I was so deep into it that I did marathon all 3 games back to back, and I was not bored of it. So, you know, the point really boils down to if you're really into whatever you're marathoning, you wouldn't care. But if you're like, alright, I'm interested in it, but like I'm not that interested in it, then you'll probably get burnt out. It's dependent on the specific individual. It's a mixed bag. So marathoning games can be either a good thing or a bad thing depending on you, the individual.